And pornography as a whole is simply just, I think it's an effect. I think it's a tool which is used to ensure that the male populace stays as docile as possible. I don't think that any of the things that are happening to the male population are accidental. I think that keeping us as docile as possible is very interesting for the people who are in charge of the world, because we're the warrior class. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to the men who are going to stand up and actually do something about anything at some point in time. So I think they like the idea of us being docile. And I mean, how much more docile can you get than a man sitting there looking at a screen, not even want to reproduce for real because he's just staring at a screen? And I think that's just a next stage in the slave mind.
And it's everywhere now. Whereas, and this is something that my husband says, he doesn't have any social media because he's like, Instagram is pornography. I open my Instagram and I've got Emily Ratajkowski's butt cheeks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a man, so I don't have that same biological reaction to seeing it, but I can only imagine how difficult it is for a man when you open an app and you've got Kim Kardashian offering her body to Emily Ratajkowski. Even if you're walking down the street, I've realized even how desensitized I've become to pornography, because you see an ad for Gucci and for whatever reason, she's got to be completely naked while she's holding the bag.
I remember in my lifetime, there were music videos that got censored or banned or can only be played after 10 or 11 at night. And if you watch them now, you'd be like, what? For what? What is that, a bikini? Like, it's nothing. It's amazing how quickly it has degenerated. And yeah, absolutely.
And we're all degenerating with it. Like I've realized the fact that I don't have a reaction to seeing the half-naked woman holding a Gucci bag means that I have been desensitized to pornography. And I can only imagine what that does to men.
Oh, completely. And but this is what the powers that be want. They want to make sure that the male populace is as docile as possible. And they do that with a large array of weapons. And they do that with a web of tools. And I believe that I'm the counter to that, which is the reason I ended up attacked in the first place. But unfortunately, when you buy into the slave mind programming, you do not become the kind of man who can easily attract a woman, because you're not attractive to females as a whole. So how do you satisfy yourself? You end up sitting there staring at a screen, and they convince you that's a good life to live as a man, and that's perfectly fine and perfectly normal. And you don't even get to genetically reproduce. I do also, though, and I want to make this clear, I do believe in absolute and utter self-accountability as a man. I think as a man, everything that happens to you is your fault. Me going to jail was my fault. Me being attacked online was my fault. If all these bad things that happened to me, I will take responsibility for, even if I believe they were unfair or unjust. And I think that any man who's going to sit there and say, I'm struggling, he also needs to wake up and understand that if you're going to truly struggle to not click on a website, then you're going to deserve the terrible life you're going to live. And the devil or the matrix, or whatever you want to call them, are going to fill your life with temptations. They're going to fill your life with easy way outs that they're going to want you to take, because the good road is usually the hardest road. And if you're going to continue to fall for them, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences of that. So it's double-edged. It's certainly difficult that pornography is everywhere and men are struggling with it. But to me, what's even more upsetting is that these men don't have enough fortitude and enough mental strength to wake up and say, I'm better than that. But this is the thing, right? So I'm about to get started, Candace.
Good, get started.
This is the thing. But this is the thing, right? So when you attack a man's mental fortitude on one issue, you attack it on all issues. This is why it's done purposefully. To resist a slave mind, you need to be able to resist in the first place. How can you resist a slave mind if you have no physicality, you have no willpower, no ability to mentally resist anything? Well, then what you're gonna end up doing, you're gonna end up eating the bugs and watching the porn and sitting in front of your computer, and that's what they want from the people. So I think that it's actually all very interconnected. People come at me with the porn problem, and I get the same thing. Guys say to me all the time, hey, what are you gonna do? What should I do? I struggle with pornography. And I say, that's because you have nothing else in your life in order. If you were in good physical condition, and you had the money you were supposed to have, and you had the mentality you were supposed to have, you wouldn't need it. So the reason you're so addicted to porn is because everything else in your life is a failure. And yeah, it's certainly a complicated issue. It's a difficult one. And this is why they fear male agency so much, because when men truly wake up and decide to be the best versions of themselves, they're hard to control, because all these control mechanisms fall by the wayside. They don't want the porn anymore. They don't want the antidepressants anymore. They don't want the garbage anymore. And now you have a whole bunch of men who actually want truth and honor and respect, and they want to live for something. And then what are they going to live for? They're going to want to be brave. They're going to want to do the right thing, regardless of how dangerous it may be for their own personal circumstance. And that sounds like a difficult population to enslave. I mean, that's what's scary. Listen, life is extremely difficult as a man. It's very fucking hard. There is no way I can tell you to win unless you're a top tier man. I can't sit here and give you a cheat code that allows you to stay a loser and win. I can only tell you what I've done. I became extremely wealthy. I became extremely capable. I became extremely smart. I developed a vast network of individuals who nobody wants to mess with. And I set up a life that makes me difficult to damage. The world you now live in is so competitive that if you're not a competitive male, you're going to be perma-depressed. You don't have a mental disease. You're just in a competitive environment and you are losing. You need to become a competitive person. There's no easy way. It's going to be hard. It's going to suck. But if you get to top G, the name, if you get there, it's a life worth living. Chess is a fantastic game because in the game of chess, there's no luck. If you lose, no matter how well you play, if you lose, at some point you made a mistake. Even if it's the most minor mistake, you made a mistake. So you learn to understand that no matter what happens to you, if you lose a scenario, you made a mistake. Maybe it's a tiny one, maybe it was 2 years ago, whatever, but you made a mistake. And you learn absolute utter accountability. And that mentality is extremely powerful to apply to all things in life. So I take the good with the bad. I take all responsibility for absolutely everything, including if a woman leaves me, if a woman stays, if I end up heartbroken, if I end up filled with rage, I take responsibility for that. Something happens to me that makes me enraged. I will take responsibility. Why has this happened to me? Why do I feel this way? How did I end up in this? Is this helping in this scenario? And sometimes it is. I've had scenarios in my life where I was prepared to die to protect somebody else, and I was enraged, and it was healthy. I've also had times where I'm in a room by myself, enraged, sitting there going, this is no good for anybody. I need to just calm the fuck down. So emotions are feedback, but stoicism is the ability to process them. And that's what you need to learn as a man. You're never going to be able to turn them off. You're going to feel them. You have to learn how to process them and turn them into a positive. It's energy. It's unlimited energy. I say this all the time. I say that the biggest periods of transformation in my life is when everything was going wrong. When my life was going good, I'm not a hedonistic person. I don't do drugs. I don't gamble. I don't do prostitutes. I don't do anything that hedonistic. But I'll certainly go on the yacht with a bunch of women I know and chill and have some vodka and stuff. When life's smooth, then it's semi-hedonistic, pretty relaxed. But when I make my biggest progress, when I really change who I am and change the world, that's when everything's fucked. When things go wrong, or I'm feeling things I don't want to feel, or bad things are happening, that's when I'm like, okay, I currently cannot sleep. I've completed the day's tasks. I've tried to go to bed. I can't sleep. More shit has happened. That's when the amazing things happen in my life. When I was heartbroken, I hit the gym hard, right? If something goes wrong with your payment processor, that's when you get fucking inventive. That's business, right? That's when you get inventive. So all the bad things that happen to you as a man, if you're stoic, you get to take unlimited energy. Heartbreak is unlimited energy. So is depression. So is rage. So is sadness. All these negative emotions they tell you to collapse behind. It's like Bruce Lee says, be like water. And people see that as be fluid and just go with the flow. I disagree. If you're like water, you are necessary for life. You are scary when you're enraged. You're powerful. You're beautiful when you're calm. You're so many things when you're like water, right? So if I'm enraged, it's like water behind a dam. You just got to put the dam in place. You got to get the turbo, the hydroelectrics put in. Don't tsunami your life. Put the energy somewhere. And this is the most beautiful thing about it, because people message me all the time like, oh, but Tate, you don't know how sad I feel. No, it's incorrect. I know exactly how sad you feel. The difference is I used it. And you're sitting here still crying, some random guy on email for the fucking third month in a row. That's the difference between you and me, my friend. I was becoming a world champion kickboxer. People often talk about depression and say I don't understand it. I will say, listen, there's been times in my life where I was fully functional as an adult. I would never label myself depressed because I don't believe in the idea of labeling myself in the negative, because I don't believe in things that take power from me. But there's been times in my life where I didn't give a fuck if I lived or died. There were times in my life where I went to fight a man for money, and I didn't give a shit if I lost and even woke up with him. Didn't give a fuck. I had nothing worth living for. I was brokey, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have any fucking money. Got a 2-day call to fight some world champion. Had to lose 10 kilos in 2 days. Had nothing else going for me. Got on a plane to Dagestan and fucking won. I say this all the time. I say the best things that ever happened to me are the worst things that ever happened to me. All the trauma and bullshit I've been through in my life are the best things that ever happened to me. Because as a man, if you've not had a difficult life, you cannot be good at being a man. Being a good man and being good at being a man, they're two slightly different things. But to be good at being a man, you need to have been through so much shit that when the Matrix deletes your entire life from the internet and starts lying about you at mass, and people start doing protests wanting you fucking hung, and they're looking for your family members, and reporters start calling every ex-girlfriend you've ever had, trying to convince them and bribe them to lie, to come out and say you're something you're not, when they're genuinely out to put you in jail, that you can sit there and be focused and stoic enough to go, you know what? Okay, off the chessboard. What's going to happen? Who's trying to shoot me right now? Nobody. Okay, so it's better than it was a couple years ago. Okay, you're never going to be capable as a man if you've not had trauma. The best men ever have had trauma. If you call a police officer, you need a brave police officer. He ain't going to be brave unless he's been through shit. Yeah. And this is what I say. People email me their long lists of all the bad things that happened to them, and I reply, fantastic. You are so lucky. You have all the building blocks to become the exact kind of man you want to be.